Hi, and welcome to the Home Video Emporium. I'm your host, my name is Brendan, and with this series what I hope to accomplish is to catalog my entire collection of home video titles and determine which of these movies still belongs amongst my elite and esteemed collection and needs to be preserved for generations to come, and which of these movies unfortunately may need to be purged solely so that we can make room on the shelves for some future titles, as I am rapidly running out of space here, and I'm still looking to add plenty of more movies coming. Hopefully there'll be even more great movies this year that I will want to add to the collection, and I need to clean up a bit of space before I do so. We're looking to get rid of 30 to 50 movies is the goal I set, around there. So we'll see what we can do. Today's episode, we are discussing Jim Cameron's 1984 The Terminator. Co-written by Camron and his, I believe, then wife, Gallianne Hurd, or maybe future wife. They're, been divorced for a long time now. Stars, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Michael Biehn. This movie, I was very young when it came out. I was only 2 years old, so I was not going to see R-rated movies in the theaters. I didn't even see this until after Terminator 2 had come out. I was obviously very aware of Terminator 2. It was a gigantic movie at the time. But both movies, I was very much aware of. They had such a big imprint on kind of cultural at the time that even without seeing it, I knew about, I'll Be Back and all that other stuff. And I knew what the Terminator looked like without the human skin. I knew what Arnold looked like in the costume. But it would be sometime in the early 90s, I think, 93, 94, maybe 95-ish. The Terminators came on TV. And I watched it with my family. And we all thought it was awesome. At least I did. Maybe my parents were lying, but I thought it was the coolest thing. I didn't know when the "I'll Be Back" line came in, and when it did, it just went absolutely crazy. And actually, it was probably maybe we watched on the weekday or something. And the next week, we went to the video store and rented Terminator 2 just because we wanted to see. At that point, it was only two movies, and probably was better when it was only two movies. But the TV show was very good too. More on that later. But one thing that did re-strike me interest, actually, before I get on to that, this is a little surprising that I never owned the Terminator on VHS or DVD. I went straight to Blu-ray, and it's really weird. This seems like it would have been, in my VHS collection right next to, Predator and Matrix and all those sci-fi action movies, but I don't know why. It took me all the way to Blu-ray to actually finally get the copy. I don't know why. Watching it now, the movie stands up. It may be overshadowed by Terminator 2, but it's significantly better than Terminator 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever they're all called. I got this, let me think. I'm thinking FYE in Clifton, New Jersey. I apologize, sometimes my, I need to save some room in the brain for actually important stuff, not just where I buy movies, but I'm going with FYE in Clifton's where I picked this up. And it is kind of strange looking back at this movie that the movie's from James Cameron, who is very pro-machine, pro-robotics, and he's making a very anti-technology, anti-robotics movie. And I don't know if he did it just so that he could make a robot movie, even if it had to be an anti-robot movie, it could still be a robot movie, because he's building, submarines so he can explore the Titanic wreckage, and he can go into all these different trenches in the ocean and see all these weird fish. And I remember seeing, there was some documentary, I think before a movie I saw, where with the Billie Eilish movie that came out recently, where he had to build his own camera system to just to film it in 3D properly. So he's obviously someone who's very pro-technology. He's very pro-robotics and all that other stuff. And I don't know why, if it was just, he wanted to make a robotic movie and no one wanted a pro one, so he just made an anti one. But, it definitely got him to show a chance to show off a lot, a lot of design work. Cameron himself, he's an artist. He does a lot of drawing. And this was a great example of him just to show out what he likes. And, looking back at the movie, which is, 42 years old at this point, it's a very old movie. You can tell in a lot of scenes, where Reese is having his flashbacks to next year, actually, 2027, and is seeing, this futuristic landscape where, even though you can tell that, especially now that it's a lot of miniatures, things like that, a lot of toys, it still works. It still looks really great. And the one thing which I actually learned about the special features, which really was impressive, is at the end when the tanker truck that the Terminator is driving blows up, that was a miniature. They built this, and you can see them doing it on the special features. They actually built, they say like a 1.5 feet tall by 8 feet wide, little miniature truck, and they blew it up. It does not look like a miniature. It looks really great. And the first time they tried it, they had a cable which was pulling the front of the truck. It ripped the front wheels off of the little truck, and then the whole thing just blew up anyway. So they had to rebuild the truck from scratch. And then second time was a charm, and then they blew it up, and it looks great. They composited Linda Hamilton in front of it. And one of the reasons why they had to do a miniature is they were actually doing that scene in front of the police station armory, where the police kept all their guns and weapons and ammunition and police helicopters, and they were afraid that if the tanker truck, if that the explosion, they can't contain it, it goes into the armory, they're going to wipe out a whole city block. So that was why they had to eventually do miniatures and that. There's also another really great special feature. Actually, I believe it's the same one, where they do talk about how they built the little city landscapes, and they do a lot of scaling and perspective, where they'll have a actual like human-sized fake skull, and they'll have all these other like miniature skulls in the background, and just the way they do it with the composition and the way they make it scale, it looks like there's this whole big like mountainscape just full of dead human skulls, and how they just even little things like when Reese is in his home time is throwing those little hand grenades at the big robots in it, to blow them up. It had to take like 7 takes just because they didn't have the weapon was only like this big, and so they had to keep throwing it to like 7 times just to get the little effect right. So it's really cool. There was a lot of hard work, obviously, that went into the movie, and it shows a lot of really great early 80s special effects. And especially if you like sci-fi movies, I'm sure everyone has at least seen this once, or at least heard of it. So you probably don't need me telling you that the movie is quite a classic. One of the things that I did really notice about this time in the movie that did strike me is when Reese and Sarah Connor, they're driving, the Terminator's driving, they both get into a car crash together. And there's like a dozen police cars that come and they surround them, and when Sarah Connor looks, the Terminator is gone, which that does not fit the Terminator at all. Even though he's injured, even though he may not have as many weapons, you think he would try to kill her at whatever he had. I don't think he would really kind of back off at that time. So that did strike me a little weird. You do have some deleted scenes on the Blu-ray here. There's one where Sarah Connor is actually planning already to blow up the manufacturing company that's going to start Skynet, which she actually does attempt to do in between Terminator 1 and 2. That's what gets her thrown into the mental institution at the beginning of the second movie. And Reese is, no, we can't do that. For whatever reason, he just says no. And they start getting into a fight, and he actually pulls a gun on her, which is really wild. And you also get the police chief. When Reese and Sarah Connor are trying to escape the police station, when the Terminator's there, he actually gives Reese his gun and says, you need to protect her, because he has fully believed that that Reese is correct and that Sarah Connor is important. He would have been interesting to bring back. He got shot a few times, but maybe they could have saved him, brought him back in some future episode in Terminator 2, but they never do. So Terminator, it is overshadowed by its sequel, Terminator 2, but it still stands heads and shoulders above of all the other Terminator movies, and it still is about as 80s a movie as you can get, with the tech noir club and the hairstyles. It's very 80. So, have you seen the Terminator? I probably bet most of you have. Does it still hold up? Is it worth being in the collection? Does it need to be purged? Does it need to be terminated? You let me know. We're going to continue on. We've got some more Jim Cameron movies to go, and we're going to see which ones are his favorites, which ones of his are kind of his weakest. So we're going to keep going with Jimmy Cameron. That's going to wrap us up for today's episode. So until next time, be kind and rewind to each other, and it's not a true home without home video. Good night.